So I want to shift to this last point, and this was more kind of an article on Nowban talking about 5 questions to ask when the market feels slow. Just being kind of, really sensitive to, the climate across the country. There is pockets, right? There's pockets that are smoking hot, but there's pockets that are a dead standstill. And it's just, why every market's a little bit different. And so for a lot of folks, they're feeling it, or their team is feeling it. And so I think this just kind of caught my attention to talk about and really think about the questions, right? Change your questions, change your life, and just think about things a little bit differently and really put the emphasis on what is within my control. And the one thing that they talked about here before we talk about these 5 questions, and I agree. They said the agents who succeed during slow times, right? They avoid getting trapped in negativity, excuses, and self-doubt. They succeed during this time because they're the ones not complaining. They're the ones who have doubled down and keep showing up no matter what. And I would go on to say they focus on, is this within my control? And I think that's one of the top questions we always talk about. What's the goal? Is that really the goal? What am I going to do today within my control to move closer to my goal? And so here's a couple questions. Love to get your guys' take on these questions. Question number 1, how many meaningful conversations have I had with people in my database this week?
So good.
Yeah. That's a leading indicator of that. It's the one measurement. When we built Funnel Pilot, the one thing that when I distilled it down to principles, if you're an agent and you're wanting to sell more houses, it comes down to how many conversations per day are you having with people that want to buy and sell and are open to doing business with you. And you're only going to have those meaningful conversations by talking to people in your database and figuring out which ones are. And so but if you can increase that number, it's a leading indicator of how many sales you're going to have. That's the thing you have to change. That's the focus every day is that one thing. It's the most important thing. And so, yeah, that's that either you're having conversations or you're not.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember, I hired a guy named Jeremy. It was over 10 years ago, and he was the #1 Kirby salesman for Kirby vacuum cleaners. I don't know if anybody has never heard of Kirby. They make some really powerful vacuum cleaners, and they only sell these things door to door. Now imagine you're someone that makes a living from selling these things, and you're basically top of funnel is the street you pick, and you go door to door trying to sell somebody a vacuum that they don't necessarily, maybe they don't need. They got a vacuum, but these are trained killers, right? And one of their #1 metrics, how many doors did you knock? Now, I'm not suggesting I do not knock doors. I used to do that back in the day with the expireds. I wanted to beat the mail, so I would go and knock on that expired's door. But it boils down to a metric. The reason I told the story about Jeremy, because I implemented the same systems. They had it. He actually got it from a different industry, whatever, but it was just a formula. And our formula for success was 25 new opportunities per month should lead to 10 face-to-face appointments, should lead to 4 sales. It was just a simple formula that we followed. Our ISAs followed it, right? So our goal, each ISA, was to get 25, each of them, 25 new opportunities. What's an opportunity? It's someone who's motivated. We talked about the motivation thing, right? They're motivated to sell their home or buy, but we were always focused on the listing side. And they have not committed to another agent, meaning they're open to doing business with you as a professional, if you can gain the trust with them and sign that agreement, and that they're willing to do it. They're ready, willing, and able. They're able to buy. They're not broke. They actually have the means to actually make that purchase. That's what I consider an opportunity. And so how many of those conversations are you having? How many new opportunities are you creating? And the cool thing is, yes, how many conversations? Before you have the conversation, you got to have the opportunity, which is why Funnel Pilot was created, to create those opportunities, to bring those into your top of funnel, into your CRM and into your world, so that you can start to build that trust with that person and then eventually have the conversation. So,
yeah, it's so good. So guys, Al's talking about his 25-10-4. We did one of the very first Expert Mentors Live episodes. We're almost at episode 300. I think we're scheduled to hit 300 in July. So on the Expert Mentors series, one of the very first ones, one of the top first 10 episodes we did was on the 25-10-4. So if you guys listening in want to check that out, go to emlreplays.com and you can go and check out Al talking about the 25-10-4. So good. All right. Question number 2. Am I offering real value to my clients in Sphere this month, or am I just checking in? What is real value? What is not generic? What stands out that we need to be really thinking about with your clients in your sphere? What is real value right now in the market?
Oh, this is an easy one for me. Your market updates are the most. First, you need to establish your expertise consistently, right? So, like being personally relevant with people and being professionally relevant. Being professionally relevant is understanding what's going on in the marketplace and communicating that to your sphere of influence, to your database, to the people that are watching they don't know what to trust, watching the news, seeing this thing, that thing. How is this impacting things? You should be the voice of reason for your entire database. And, that's knowing the data, communicating the data, keeping current matters is my favorite, market trends, all the different reports we've used over time, but being able to take that information and communicate that out so that you can really educate people as to what's really truly going on, being that voice of calm in all the chaos.
Yeah.
I could comment to what's not. Your funny TikTok videos that you're hoping goes viral is not changing anyone's life. I can tell you they're fun to watch. They might be fun to shoot, but you can't, I learned this back in coaching with Kinder Reese and NAEA, John. You can't be an expert and claim to be an expert without actually being an expert. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? So the cool thing with what you said, Jay, is you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. One, you have to study the market and be an expert. You got to know your numbers. I remember when I would go into a listing appointment, I would memorize the numbers. I'm not very good with memorizing a lot of things, but I can memorize just a couple little things that would make me position me, as the expert in front of that seller. I'd reel off how many homes that they're in competition with him right now are on the market. I would know it. I wouldn't go look at a sheet on it. I would know it. I would bring the sheet, don't get me wrong, but I would memorize. I would be positioning myself as an expert. I would know how many sold in the last 6 months. And is it a buyer's or a seller's market? And so it wasn't much to know, but the more you start digging into that, yes, put that content out there. I'll tell you this. If I'm a seller, if I'm thinking of selling my house and an agent's putting funny TikToks up of them dancing around and on a pogo stick or pretending to beat somebody up because blah, 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 whatever, that might be fun and entertainment for people to watch. But if I'm a seller, I'm looking at the guy, I'm looking at Jay or John's market update. I want to know how many homes have sold like mine in the last 30 days that I'm competing with. I want to know what the trend is looking like. I want to know, are people moving into the suburb or are they moving out? And there's no only way to know that is to study your market. Yeah. Keeping current matters. And from when we used to use it, they've come light years too. They were great then.
Yeah.
And they're even better now with their, in fact, I think we have no affiliation with them, but we used to. They even help you build the relevant content that positions you as an expert. So yeah, definitely check them out. I haven't seen those reports in a minute, but I know a lot of our agents are leveraging them, and it's really making them shine.
Needs to be your number one expense. Investing in the relevant information that gives the key resources of where they're pulling the data. It's just not, this is my guess. This is right here's the resource, goes right to it. So this leads right into the third question, Al, that you just hit on. Is my content bringing in new leads or just recycling the same updates with no real energy?
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on that.
That's perfect, right? It should be to start a conversation. Is it engaging or is it just noise? There's a lot of noise out there. And I think, aligning with AI to be able to help you, and even the direction going back to meaningful conversations within my database, real value that's relevant, that's going to bring in possible new opportunities. What's resonating now in the market? There's some ways, man. Oh God, I just think back, just with our Raving Fan program and understanding lifetime value and being able to connect with, the lifetime connection programs that we had built out, how we communicate, what buckets they're in. Are they raving fans? Are they just advocates? Are they one-time customers? How you speak to them, being able to understand, the Harvey McKay 66, understanding hug your customers and all the hug fields. Now with the power of AI, you could quickly, because we used to talk about, hey, could you imagine going into your database, pull up everybody that has dogs, that loves the University of Oklahoma football. Oh, by the way, they're doing a special spring giveaway to bring your pup to the spring practice game. How about we send an information to the database that has like that? That's reality now, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's meaningful. That's real value. That's relevant. But I think to your point, Al, are you doing things that starts a conversation that my filter with marketing was, man, we just got to join the conversation in their head. And, we want to go after motivated sellers. What's keeping them up at night? We want to go after motivated real estate agents, that are looking for a new opportunity. What's keeping them up at night? Let's join that conversation. So is your content joining the conversation of the real opportunity in the marketplace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, we all see people, and I've been guilty of it way back when I first joined Facebook in 2009, 10, everyone was just plastering their new listings all over their Facebook wall. And we still see some of that. And I'm not picking on y'all, but what sells is that the buyers and the sellers, they're human beings before they're a potential buyer, right? They're a human. And all the clients that are out there, Sheplak said it best, is that, like, I don't know, I'm making the number up, but he said it's like 96 or 97%, a super high percentage of your audience on social is disinterested. And what do I mean by disinterested? They're not just a buyer and a seller right now. So what do we put up there that's still relevant, still professional, that's still going to capture them when they are ready, not just the 3-4% who are thinking right now. And by just plastering listings all over your wall, you're only appealing to those maybe 3 to 5% of people who in your audience are in the market right now. And so my suggestion is tell stories that connect here. The connection's not made through logic. And you can post stats and this and that, but when we're talking about posting, what connects is the heart to the heart. Mm-hmm. It's a story. When we kind of all both came up with it through Craig Proctor's putting the ads in, the full page ads. I used to do a full page ad in a magazine called Mimi's here, and my ads weren't ads. They didn't look like an ad. They were a story. Mm-hmm. I would tell a story, not mentioning the seller's name, of a seller who had listed with another broker for 6 months. And they had called me because the home expired, and we would dissect why it didn't. So I would be telling these stories, educating the market and connecting them with them on a deeper level. And so that's what I would encourage you. Tell stories through your social media, and then connect on a deeper level. And then, of course, pepper in the expert data that we were talking about, but just don't pepper all of that in. Really get that human connection going. And now you're going to start having more of those conversations, and you're going to really build trust quicker.
Yeah. And so that perfect segue into question number 4. And am I showing up in places where my ideal clients hang out, online and offline? Am I showing up there? Right. You did the Mimi's ads because that was your target market, and that's your ideal client was there. They were paying attention to that. And I think that's just such an important, factor, is to be able to go. But to your point with storytelling, Sam went to 1000 Watt. They're changing up the name of it. He says it's one of the best marketing events he's ever been to. Sam Basil, and which has been in Dallas, but they're going to in 26. They're going to Denver. And I was like, sign me up. What's the dates? I'm coming. And the theme over there has been the number one thing that we have to focus on with everything we do is storytelling. Mm-hmm. And, I've given you guys examples, talked about it. In my opinion, right now, inside of the real estate game, the one person, if you guys want to get better at telling stories, specifically for your listings, right? The power of video and the power of storytelling is you got to go pay attention to Georgia Tush. She's at the top of the game right now. I don't know anybody better. She just happens to be a storyteller that just happens to sell real estate. That's what she is. This is what we've been talking about for years, right? You have to be a marketer that just happens to do what? Happens to recruit agents, happens to help motivated sellers, has to help first-time home buyers. What do you do? But you got to be a marketer first that just happens to do that. So these questions are all marketing type questions, right? How do I have more meaningful conversations? How do I join the conversation in their head? How do I provide value, real value to the person that's actually going to spend money with me, right? Not just make a new friend. I need to talk to somebody that's going to exchange my value for their money. What type of content am I creating? New leads, stories I'm telling. How am I showing up? And where, most importantly, where am I showing up? And that was always kind of our rule of thumb. Like, we ain't married to nothing. The only thing we're married to is where our target audience, the person that has money, is hanging out. That's where we're going to go. If billboards are working, they're working. If they're not working, they're not working. If radio's working, radio's working. If it's not working, it's not working. TV ads, no, nobody watches TV anymore. We ain't doing that shit, right? We're going to go where they're hanging out. And so I think that's super, super important. And because you think about this all the time. I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
But where are the ideal clients hanging out right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's all these social media platforms have just changed the whole game as far as where people tend to their eyeballs go. It still comes down to fundamentally it's reach and frequency. So that it's the same reason like why direct mail. So like what I learned when I did billboards and direct mail and newspaper was there was no personality to it, right? Like people didn't feel like they knew me, but they thought of me and they would call me. And that stuff all worked. If I mailed you enough times, you would think of me first, and eventually you would call me, and I would get the opportunity to list your house. On radio, what I felt instantly different it instantly changed when I started doing radio. Again, running a spot at 7:50 a.m. every single day instead of spray and pray, like a 6A to 10P type schedule where you don't know who's going to hear that message how many ever times. But every day, the same people are creatures of habit in their car. They're doing whatever, their morning ritual is. So there's a small subset of that K-Law station that was always listening in at 7:50. And every day I was a first in rotation, told a story of a client story. And after 3 weeks, so basically 15 to 18 days of me being, every day, one message a day to the same people, there started to be this temperature change of people feeling like they knew who I was, like they were my best friend, and they started referring other people they knew, and they started calling, and we're just, the phone was ringing, and it's that. So it's still fundamentally reach and frequency. So no matter what the medium is, you still have to have enough frequency in order for them to think of you first, ultimately. And so that's where social media gets a little bit more complicated in terms of what can you be creating that's going to pop up and them happen to actually be, looking at their feed and it be relevant. And that's why I think the only game you can play, and this is what we do with Funnel Pilot, is if we know somebody's interested in new construction Frisco and they clicked on that, we generated a lead from that. Now let's think about content. What all content could I now create that would be super relevant to that person? And then let's put that in their way. Let's put that in the email follow-up attached to a YouTube channel playlist with 15 or 20 videos that might, 8 or 10 of them might be super interesting to them. And so now they're consuming your content. You're forcing them into your world of content. And so it's so cheap and easy to generate the lead. But now you just have to think about what value can I start using to demonstrate my knowledge so that they think, man, this is my guy. If I'm buying new construction in Frisco, I'm calling this guy. And I think that's how it's not just like I should post 3 times a day on Instagram. That's not going to do it, bro. Like that's not strategy. Strategy is identifying that target market. You can do that through advertising. And now you can use the social media to establish your trust and build trust because they don't know you. Like if it's somebody that knows you in your database, yeah, it's different. Or somebody refers you, those people already know, like, and trust you. They've already experienced it. Someone who hasn't, you have to be able to bridge the gap with marketing and content and value creation, giving them great things that are helping them with the decision where they go, man, if I'm doing this, we should call this guy. That to me is the ultimate strategy. And that's why we teach it.
It is 100%. And so a lot of thoughts, things around there, but these are things that won't change, right? I think that's the one thing that we need to talk about. I use, discipline over disruption, focus on the things that won't change. Fundamentally, no matter what happens, won't change. I truly believe real estate will always come down to a decision of trust, right? Do they trust you because you've been transparent, authentic times time? That's the key. Reach and frequency times time out there to that point. We know storytelling, fundamental. I mean, stories forever. It's always been about stories and storytelling. That'll never change. Relationships, going deep, trust will never change. So that's how the things that we have to do. And I know we had a couple questions on the stories. This is the book. Get it. Stories That Stick. Kendra Hall. It's the best one. It's the best storytelling book. And you just, she breaks down the core fundamentals in every story, the 4 types of stories: a value story, a founder story, just all kinds of different stories you need to have.
Dude, I'm getting that book.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I've read a book on stories, and it was game changing. I want to get the updated version.
Get that one. Seth Godin's on the front, right? Talking about anything he's going to say, you better pay attention to.
I want to break down people that are listening to this. You're listening to this saying, but I'm not a good storyteller. Yeah, but I don't know what to post consistently. Yeah, I know. I hear you, Jay. We got to do this consistently. Like the radio, you don't go into radio for 30 days and say, this didn't work. No, you go in 12 months, you go all in. You're obsessed with success. You're committed and you're all in. But what about, like, I just don't know what to say. Well, let me ask you this. If you're one of those, and I get it, like that's probably one of the biggest, and we solved that problem with Funnel Pilot. We actually give you the content that's relevant to the funnel that's built out so that you don't even have to think about it. But let's go back to that. I'm not good at that. Do you tell stories to your wife when you come home? Do you tell stories to your husband, your kids? Have you ever told your kid a story about something? We all know how to tell stories. Mm-hmm. The matter is let's get yourself out of get out of the way and start bringing that story to your audience that's going to be relative to, and they're going to connect with that story. That's what you're doing by it. John says about video, right? Video's great. And it doesn't, here's the cool thing. I want to leave with this because actually I may have to hop off real quick. John says, my bad video outperforms your non-existent one. My bad video. And I still get postcards to my house from the competing realtors that are trying to get listings in my neighborhood. I'll get them today, still this day. Some of them are good. Some of them are really bad. You know what? They're consistent. I can tell you the guy's name. I'm not going to say it here, but there's a guy that just consistently mails bad postcards, but I know his name. Bad postcard's going to outperform the non-existent one. Back in the day, postcards was that was the only way to farm. Now you can geo-target and do all kinds of fun things online, but it was postcards, which I think that still work.
Absolutely.
Still work.
Think about it. Like I used to get it was dog-eared. The printing was faded. It wasn't even a great message. And it didn't matter because the first person that you think of, what was it? Jay, it was that statistic. Like people only really know 2 names. And if you're not one of the 2 names that people are thinking of when they think of a real estate agent, then you're out.
Yeah, it's a 2-horse race. They're going to think of 2 people's names, and if you don't come up in those 2, you're not getting the phone call. And so the same thing happened to me out. Like when I would get mail, you could talk to even more to this. Like there would be a listing that would sell somewhere, and when I lived in Aubrey, it would probably not even be relevant. Like it would just be a house in a neighborhood a mile away, and then I would get 1 postcard, and that's it. And I'd never see them again. So I couldn't even think of their name now to make fun of them. Never while I lived out there, nor since I've been here in Newman Village, have I gotten something consistent over a period of time where I actually think of the agent. And so like that's the opportunity is in the frequency. Like, that's like my favorite story I tell with Mike Reese when he started doing postcards was I was riding around with him in the Hummer and he's like, man, my mailer's about to drop here in Frisco. And he was mailing all of Frisco, the whole damn city, every house. And he was mailing them like 2-3 times a month. And so his mailer drops, the phone rings, he answers the phone, and this lady goes, is this Michael Reese? I can wallpaper my bathroom with all these postcards you've been sending me. I need to sell my house. I died laughing. I was like, dude, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, that's just understanding marketing and just beating them over the head with this message, same message over and over, same color, didn't change nothing, over and over and over. That lady was like, man, I'm calling this fool. I got to sell my house. Like, that's what happens when you have mind share. You're just trying to get mind share. When they think of you first or second, you at least have the opportunity. You have the at bat. And that's, that's why this stuff works. And, direct mail, even though it's on the way to the trash can, they see your name. You do that. You think, well, I mail them once, quarter, once a month. That's not enough. That isn't meaningful. You send them something once a week for 15 weeks. They'll be like, what the hell is this guy keeps sending me this stuff for? That's now, but they remember you. And that's what all you're trying to do in marketing.
That's it. Fifth question to ask. And, it comes back down to, we always joke, right? The law of Mike. If you don't ASK, you don't GET. Have you made any specific offers in the last 7 days that someone could say yes to? Have you made any offers that somebody could say yes to? And we have to remember, right? Offers move people into action. And if we're not making offers to move them into action, we're missing opportunities. So get the offers out there.
I want to tee this one up. Jay, what's the number one rule of marketing? Work on your
what? Number one rule of marketing?
Always be working on your what?
I don't know.
Your offer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, but yeah, I threw you for a loop there. What's the number two rule of marketing? Always be
working on your offer.
Working on your offer.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's so important. Your value proposition, your offer. Hermosi's got the easiest follow because he has pictures and he has stick figures, so he makes it really easy for me to comprehend and read. So $100 million offers, if you guys are looking for a little cheat code to kind of help build out that process, is really cool. And here's the reality, right? We come from the belief you're either growing or you're dying. And if you're sitting on the sidelines, giving yourself permission to sit still, that ain't growing. And growth takes momentum. It takes energy, and got to have the confidence, and you don't build confidence by sitting still.